Hey everybody, welcome to our new episode of Secure the Bag OT. On today's episode, we're going to be exploring the world of the NRL, finals specifically. So joining me on today's podcast is our recurring special guest, Luke, and our new guest, Lockie. Before we get into our first topic, let's introduce yourself, boys. Luke, let's start with you.
Yep, so thanks, Anthony. Thanks, mate. As you know, Luke, been on a few of these episodes. They're good. As you can see behind me, big Dragons fan, been following my whole life. Not a great season for us, but I'm keen to explore footy with these boys and have a good chat. We'll see what happens.
Definitely. Lockie, mate, over to you. Take the floor.
Yeah, so this is my first time on the podcast and I'm very excited. I'm a Brisbane Broncos supporter at heart. Has been a really rough year. A lot of improvement though since last year, and yeah, I'm really excited. So let's give this a crack.
I agree. And as you can see from the background behind me, Broncos till I die, mate. Broncos till I die. So Luke, you're outnumbered a little bit. So let's get into our first little introductory topic. I just want to hear from both of you on what your most outrageous NRL moment you've seen this season was. Lockie.
Yeah, this is actually one that I had to think about a lot. There's been a lot this year that's just been, it's been a weird year especially with COVID and having the competition move to Queensland. But definitely just some of the penalties that shouldn't be penalties. I remember, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, watching Bulldogs v Manly and Marty Tapau's run up. Bulldogs players literally made the tackle, touched the back of his long dreadlock hair, and penalty that then changed the momentum of the game. And the Bulldogs were actually playing really well. And it just, penalties that shouldn't be penalties.
Yeah.
I think the NRL really needs to take a really cold, hard look at what they review as a penalty and what they don't. So, yeah,
I completely agree. What about you, Luke?
Yeah, so as much as it hurts me to say this decision, I think is the dumbest thing I think I can remember in rugby league, and there's dumb moments ever. But it's, as behind me, it's the Dragons barbecue scandal at Paul Vaughan's house. I mean,
yeah.
Dragons were in the 8. They beat the Warriors. They were in the 8. Everything was looking good. They then have a barbecue when they have a bye and an extra break.
Yeah.
Then it brings the competition down. Everyone, 12 players get suspended, win another game and lose 8 straight. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, I think COVID's changed the game so much, and it's getting ridiculous now. And I think when we introduce those kind of things like having bloody barbecues, it ruins everything, you know. I mean, my most outrageous moment actually came from the last game of the season here, where Manly and Tom Trbojevich's last try after the buzzer. I think that was absolutely
What a try.
Try of the year, mate. Honestly.
It was unbelievable. And I'm not a huge Trbojevic fan at all, and he didn't have much to do in the play, I guess. But after the buzzer was nuts. It was nutty. So I think that's got to take the cake for me. But I think I want to get into one of our first deep dive topics, and I think we can't not talk about Latrell Mitchell and the Bunnies. Is it?
Yeah.
It's hard to think. It's hard to see where they'll be without Latrell Mitchell. Obviously, I'm not a huge fan of him because I'm a Queenslander, but I think he's a really huge part of their game, and he's a versatile player as well. He can play out on the wing, he can play fullback, in the centres on his day. I think it's hard to see that it's hard to see where the Bunnies would be without him. Do you think they can compete for a premiership without Latrell Mitchell, Piers?
Look, with me, I'm very I like Latrell Mitchell as a player. I think he's a strike centre. I feel like the first sign of that the Bunnies wouldn't be able to make a real charge was when they versed earlier in the year when they were against Penrith. I think they lost like 15-0. Then they played them again a couple of weeks ago, and Latrell Cleary was just putting up these high bombs, and that was the biggest thing about Latrell is that I don't think he's a fullback. I think he's a strike centre. I've got Blake Taff, young kid who can probably fill in. again, he's not that dynamic, charging ball runner like Latrell is. You have got the halves combination of Reynolds and Walker. So they got strike all around the park. You got Cam Murray. I feel like they will do some damage, but when it comes to, either Penrith Panthers or Melbourne Storm, I think they're going to fall short.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think as well, Latrell's a hell of a player. On his day, single-handedly changed the game with his speed and his size and his power. But like you said, Lockie, I think he is a left centre. I think that is his position, and it was just how dominant he was at Origin when he was playing there.
He played his best football.
Yeah. If you're Queenslander, he gave Dane Gagai a bar to his club mate numerous times across all 3 games.
Yeah.
So that happened. But I do think as well with Latrell that he's such a good player, but he needs to tone his aggression. Like, he's been suspended 6 times over the last 3 seasons. Like, for a guy that's that important and that much money, he needs to stay on the field. Like, that's just what it comes down to. But I think, they've got Taff, they've got a good left side, they've got a great attack. But I think Mitchell, I don't think they'll go very far in the finals. I think Latrell's a major and a massive part of what they do. And without him there, I can't see them competing with Melbourne and Penrith for the championship.
I think next year he's just got to tune down the angry pills and just, he's a great player. He gets this thing where he's like, he gets angry at the opposition for tackling him. Like, why are you tackling me? And I think he's got so many role models in Brad Fittler, Wayne Bennett, Trent Robinson. He needs someone to just pull him into line and say, look, mate, we can't have you on the sideline. We need you on the field. So he's really just got to tone. If he tones down that emotion and tones down that aggression, I have no doubt that he'll be, Dally M medalist fullback of the year. If he can just tune down, because he's costing South a premiership with that hit on Joey Manu. So he just needs to
just quietly with that, I don't know how that wasn't a send-off.
Oh, absolutely. It's just the classic example of the bunker not doing its job, and that's why Joey Manu got up on his high horse and went over to Latrell and said, "You're supposed to be my mate. Why are you doing this to me? Why did you do that?" And Latrell goes off for 10 minutes, comes back on, scores a try, slams the freaking ball on the ground and goes, "Well, up you, Roosters." It's just not needed,
Of course it's not. And that's what he needs to get out of his game. He doesn't need to do it. Like, some people, they need to act tough, but Latrell doesn't. He's got the ability. He doesn't need to act like that.
He's arrogant. He's absolutely arrogant. He thinks he's top shit. And unfortunately, that's the persona he's got at the moment. And he's got a chip on his shoulder. And the sooner he gets that out of his game, the better it'll be.
Yeah, I agree. I think they had a really shaky start to the season. I think they didn't look very good for a lot of their games. I very specifically remember them playing Melbourne at Amy Park, and I think that they really looked poor and they really looked shaky. I think without Latrell, without their main striker, I think that they're really not going to go far. I can't see them beating. I can't see them going anywhere else. Definitely can't see them beating the Panthers. So. Yeah.
Again, they've got strike, but you know what? It's not going to matter. Their defense, they leak too many points in the middle of the year.
But that ties in well with our next point, I think, which is the Storm and the Panthers. I mean, they just look so dominant, and they have for the past 2 years, 3 years. Storm look confident and dominant every single year. But the Panthers have really taken their own. They've really come to shape recently in these last few seasons, and nobody really looks to be on their level at all. And I think it's really telling when they've play other big clubs. When they're up against teams like the Bunnies and the Roosters, they dominate like they're a bloody Cowboys. They play the Roosters like they would the Cowboys, and I think it's really, really bloody telling. And it shows just how far the distance is between the top 2 teams and the rest. I struggle to see where it's come from, really. I'm not sure. Luke, what are your thoughts on the Storm and the Panthers? Can anybody touch them at all?
I think Manly can have a crack at it because I think Manly, and I know we'll get into this later with the Tommy and Sav and Garrick, they've got issues, but they've got so many points in them. But I think with Melbourne, it just comes down to Craig Bellamy, and I think he is, in my opinion, the best coach to ever coach in the NRL. Everyone talks about Bennett and Robinson and all this stuff, but it's got to be Bellamy. Every year, Melbourne lose one or two good players every single season. Yep. I mean, Addo, Cusley, I think Smith's gone, Slater's gone, Cronk's gone. But they replace him. They move Brandon Smith. They bring Harry Grant in, whose Origin series last year and this year was unbelievable.
Absolutely.
They seem to bring people into, I think, what they do with their role. That's why Melbourne's so good. They just bring people up from the ground and make them into such good players. And with the Panthers, the reason why I think they're so good is just because they've got that, obviously, their big junior base, but they've kept it local. The guys like Crichton, Tomo, Cleary, they've all played with each other for so long. So it creates a culture which the Dragons behind me don't have, that they want to win and they want to stay together. And that's why I think those teams are so far above the others.
We got to remember.
Sorry,
we got to remember too that there are a lot of clubs who suffered from injury, Roosters especially. But to think that Penrith had about 6 debutants that came into the New South Wales Origin side. Capewell, Cleary, Luai, Cleary's been injured for since Origin. So you've really got to take that into account. There are a lot of teams who they play the injury card, but Penrith have been struck with injuries all year. And you got a guy like Matt Burton playing in the centres. He's just been on a whole new level. And that's the thing about Penrith is I think Penrith will win the premiership this year because they didn't have Matt Burton. They didn't have Tavita Pangai, which was a very good buy from them mid-season. Kills me that they have him because he was playing, semi all right for Brisbane this year. But
semi all right.
They've got so much strike, and Melbourne are the same. I don't know what they're going to do with regards to Pappenhausen. I don't think he's back to what he was. Personally, I put Hines at fullback and bring him on if they needed him. And then I'd also start Harry Grant at 9 and have Brendan Smith come on as a lock kind of role.
And that's how he was deployed at the start of the year. Every Melbourne game that I went to this year, Harry Grant started, and Smith is on the bench, but. And I think the Big Cheese has got really good qualities, but I think he's very much a bench player. Harry Grant's fantastic.
Yeah,
I think with Grant, I just think he's a great bench player because obviously the last game with the Sharks, I mean, he just picked up the ball from dummy half, did one dummy straight through the line. Like Brandon Smith doesn't give you that. So the way Grant runs and the way he takes the game on, I think bringing him in after 20 just really opens it up for him and gives them the second string to their attack.
Yeah, I agree. I think the way Harry Grant offers a lot more going forward. I think Brandon Smith is a lot more sound defensively, and I think that's kind of what he's used for. They don't need more strike power, right? They've got everyone under the sun who can perform at such a top level, and they're so lethal that they're scoring 50 points, so they don't really need more points with Harry Grant. So I can see the justification for having Brendan Smith on there and starting. But again, they don't really need it. They're going to outscore their opponents every week. So what's the point, right? What's the point?
Yeah.
100%. 100%.
And I know we touched on it a bit earlier, but Manly, and I think you said that Manly look near that kind of tier of Melbourne Panthers this year, at least. I beg to differ, kind of, but it really comes down to one man, and really one man only, and that's Turbo.
If he's healthy, Manly's chances just increase. You've got to look at the rate of how much they've been able to win by since having Tom on the field. We were talking about Manly being possibly wooden spooners at the start of the year. I didn't see them doing. I couldn't see them making the finals. No, they were horrible.
I remember seeing a game here in Wollongong with Manly and the Dragons, and it was just Manly would just run off the park. Tommy wasn't there, but they just had nothing. You're just thinking, this team now, I know it's one guy, but the way they're playing now compared to what they were like then, so different.
Yeah. I think
100%.
Tommy gives them a little bit of extra confidence as well. I think it's a morale thing, somewhat. And you see it with big teams all the time in every sport, right? You look at Tom Brady when he didn't play for the Patriots or didn't play for Tampa, they looked really shaky. And again, one man goes a long way when you have someone like Tom Brady. But I think it's that morale boost that Turbo gives Manly. I think they know that when Turbo's on, he's going to have a good game. He has more good games than bad games. And I think it gives
He
them
makes
that
everyone
confidence
else better.
Exactly. It gives them the confidence to try new things and kind of see the boundary that they can go to. I think that they go, well, let's give him the ball, let's try a cheeky 1-2, or let's try a mousetrap or something and see what happens with it. And I think that's probably one of the biggest aspects, and that's probably why Manly do so well, because they're willing to try new things. They know that he's going to score. They know he's going to get points. So they're able to open up a bit more and be a bit more expressive on the field. And I mean, we can't disregard and not talk about his Origin performances this year. Surely that kind of mentality comes into the finals now.
Makes you feel proud to be a New South Welshman when you see him putting performances like that. Not gonna lie.
I disagree, but
no,
and he was
but
just like a second fullback. That's what it was. He didn't play right centre. He just roamed. I mean, it's just when you're that dominant. I think with Tommy as well, that I think people underestimate how strong his legs are. How many tackles does he break? People just can't tackle him.
No, he's the tallest fullback I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he reminds me a lot of he reminds me a lot of Tedesco in the way that he just breaks tackles with ease. And I think that's a really crucial part in today's game and the speed. I think that's how he's scoring so much.
Jared Hayne. He reminds me a lot of Jared Hayne in the way that he used to play.
Bigger body. Yeah.
Yeah, big body,
That's
big
true.
fullback. You just break through the line.
That's true.
Granted, and you know what? He's only going to get better. He's only like 25. So you think about what he's like now. A lot of these fullbacks are still very young too, and only starting off in their careers as fullbacks. So Pappenhausen as well.
It's a really prosperous time to be a fullback. I mean, you've got Pappenhausen and Tommy and Latrell plays out back there, and there are so many fantastic fullbacks. And I don't think we've seen this kind of crop of fullbacks ever.
No.
Where every fullback in the top 8 you would take in your team in a heartbeat, right?
It's been the halves. It's always been the focus has been on the halves, I feel. And
right.
I feel like it's this year that we're showing a little bit more appreciation to some of the fullbacks.
Yeah, I think it's because it's the changing dynamic of the game. I mean, they're a lot more involved offensively now.
And I think that's another thing why that's the case is because I think the game's a lot quicker, so the fullbacks can play a bit up the middle, especially with all the set restarts and stuff. The opportunity to get the ball, and I think that's just helped the smaller. I mean, people like Tommy and Latrell aren't small, but the faster guys really just get a lot more involved in the play. I think we have to look at that as well.
They play like a second halfback or second 5'8".
They do. Yeah. And a lot of the time they're acting as it, and they're getting the points and the assists to justify playing up there.
That's right.
It's unbelievable. But I mean, there's a plethora of great fullbacks and great teams out there at the moment. But it's hard to see how someone like the Titans and someone like Parramatta hit the finals. That bewilders me a little bit. I'm not sure how, when you look at the quality of Manly and the quality of the Storm, and even the Roosters to an extent, how does someone like the Titans or Parramatta get there? Like, I don't know if you guys were as shocked as I was.
I think they're there just to make up the numbers, in my opinion. I was listening to, I think it was Andrew Johns talking about it, how there should be a top 4, not a top 8, because you can end up having more losses than wins and still be in the semi-finals. And no offense to the Titans. I just feel like they're a one half. They can only play 40 minutes of football. Same with Newcastle. Like watching Newcastle play, as much as I wanted Brisbane to get up on the weekend, I just, listen to Adam O'Brien talking in his press conference saying, we're not worried about the loss today. Wouldn't you want to go into the first week of the finals with enough momentum and
True.
win against a team that hasn't gone that good this year?
That's not a good mentality to have, and I think that's the mentality that sets apart, especially when you mentioned Craig Bellamy a bit earlier, Luke.
Yeah.
I think that's the mentality that those great coaches like Craig Bellamy bring to the team. A loss is a loss, and you need that momentum, like you said, Pierce. You need that momentum to push yourself forward and propel that team. And coming to the finals, it's arguably your most important game of the year. And coming off a loss,
I think that mindset. Yeah, and I think that mindset thing's really important because you've got the Bellamy's and that. And the thing with Bellamy that I love and why Melbourne have been so successful for 15 plus years is because they could be up 40-0, but he'll still be disgusted if they play poorly because he has the high standard. And then they don't say what Lachlan said about how Newcastle are just in the final, so we won't worry about it. I think that's the standard you have to set for yourselves to get to that level. And I think that's what separates the top 4 and then the top 6. But I think with you guys, I think you're being a little bit harsh on Parramatta because they're not playing that well at the moment. But for a lot of the year, they played really well. I think Gutherson's a big player. I think Moses had a great season for them as well. So I think Parramatta, that top 6 is above the rest. But I think, who was in it? The Sharks were potentially in the finals until the Warriors lost 44-0, and that was terrible. But that's another issue. But then I think that top 6, it broke away. But the Knights and the Titans are just making up numbers, in my opinion.
Yeah, I just don't think Parramatta have a winning roster at the moment. Like that's the biggest issue with Parramatta is that they've always been able to they peak too early. They do really well at the start of the year, and then first week at the finals they bail out. And we've seen this year after year.
Yeah.
And nothing has changed. It's not a winning roster. And I've heard Gus Gould talk about that all the time. They're a good team. They've got a lot of strike, but it's not a winning roster. They can't get to that next step. They don't take that next step.
I agree. I actually would argue and say the same thing about the Roosters at the moment. I don't think that's a winning roster at all. And you compare them to their premiership winning side a few years ago. The night and day. They play worse. They have a worse roster. I mean, obviously they don't have Cooper Cronk and your big player and your big star player. But I mean, on paper they're okay, but I don't think when you compare them, I don't think that's a winning roster. When you compare them to the likes of the Panthers and the Storm, who basically make up the entire international squad, the entire Origin squad, those two teams. But it really does astound me how those teams like Titans even made that top 8. And you're right, they're there just to make up numbers, I think. But in saying that, let's have a little bit of a discussion about this coming game week and these first matches of the finals. So you've got the Storm playing the Sea Eagles. You've got Storm and Manly. Pierce.
Game of the round, in my opinion. I think Munster, even though he's got that leg injury, that's a big inclusion. I mean, Munster's a big game player. He's done it his whole career. And as well, Addo Carr out's a big one. Had a lot of speed and power down that left wing. But I think Melbourne, I did tip Manly earlier, but thinking about it now, I think Melbourne just have enough class to get there. I think they'll win by I think it'll be a bit of a grind, but Manly will want to try and stretch Melbourne. But I think maybe a 30-18 or something. I think there will be points, but I think Melbourne will have too much class.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think Melbourne, they're my favourites to win, and I think they're going to win very comfortably. But yeah, I can't see anybody, especially not Manly, outplaying the Storm at this point. What about you, Lockie?
See, I disagree because you got to realise that they're going to have to target Munster. Munster will have to be their primary target. And if we remember when they played a couple of weeks ago, they shifted the ball, and that was what really troubled the Storm in the first 40 minutes.
Yeah.
When you've got wingers like Garrick and Saab up against someone like Jennings and what's the other Melbourne winger?
Iramia.
Yes. So they're going to go down that edge, and their defense wasn't that great against, and considering they had Adokar as well. So they've really got to try and look at it from a mindset. And Desi's, we talk about Craig Bellamy, Des Hasler, he's an amazing coach too. To what he's done with this Manly side is just phenomenal. You know, they've got a big forward pack in Jake Trbojevic, Alakawatu. You know, they've just, and then you think about, you know, Kieran Foran as well. He was on the outer at Canterbury last year, and he's playing like he's friggin'.
He was basically retired.
He was playing terribly. He was struggling to get minutes. He wasn't fit. Yeah.
No. So I think, you know, as much as people will say this is Melbourne's to lose, I think Manly can get the job done. I do think it'll be really close. I'm tipping Manly to win 20-16.
Interesting. It's really interesting, actually.
Mm.
I think let's do a couple quick fire games. We've got Panthers and Rabbits. Lockie, who's winning?
All right. For me, I just think Penrith are going to be too strong. Way too strong.
Yeah, I agree. Luke?
Yeah, Penrith are, without Latrell, Penrith are at full strength. Cleary and Luai, my opinion, the best hubs in the game, better than Walker and Reynolds. Yeah, Penrith will do it pretty easily.
Yeah, I completely agree. Penrith, I can see him scoring 40 points nearly, to be honest. All right, and I think let's get into the probably least viewed finals match of all time, Knights and Para. Who have we got?
Look, with this one, this one's hard for me because, in my opinion, looking at Para's team on paper, like it looks really good.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like Para will have a lot of points in them. After last week, that thrashing to Penrith, you got to remember they didn't have their full strength side.
Yeah, correct.
And unfortunately, Knights just haven't done it for me this year. I just think they were probably one of the worst teams within the top 8 this year. So I'm predicting a big win from Parramatta.
Yeah, there's only so much Kalen Ponga can do. And I mean, he was out for a lot of time. They looked shaky when he was out, but they also don't look very sound when he's in either. So I think Para's got this one. Well, it's going to be a close game, but I think Para's got this one.
Oh, absolutely.
Luke?
I think Para, and to be honest, I don't think it'll be close. I just think Newcastle, to be honest, have been really disappointing. I think they've got good players. If you look at their roster, they've got Pearce, they've got Ponga, they brought in Frizzell, Origin player, Australian player, they've got Clemmer. I mean, a few years ago, he was playing Origin and stuff. And I just think that they haven't delivered. And I think Parramatta with, like I said, Moses, I think Gutherson will be a difference maker for them. Their forward pack, Paulo, Campbell, Gillard, Marnie's a big out for them, but I think their forwards will get them. And I think it'll be 20 plus points for Para.
Fantastic. I think we can't leave out, although I know the answer, Roosters smash the Titans, surely.
See, that one's tough for me because Titans have been one of those teams who you don't know what you're going to get from them, because one week they'll be, playing horribly. Next minute they'll smash the opposition. I look with the end of Fafita, Tino, Big Tino. I like the look of Peachy in the number 6.
Mm-hmm.
I just think he just provides so much spark, more than Ash Taylor did when he was there. Jared Wallace, Kevin Proctor's back, which is really good. This one's tough. I do think Roosters will be too strong with Radley back, Angus Crichton, Big Jared, Rhea Hargraves. I just think they'll be too strong. It'll be close, but I think they'll just be too strong at the end of the day.
That's fair. And Luke, quick prediction from you, mate.
Yeah, I think Roosters. I originally thought Titans, but with Roosters, with the people coming back, but also just a quick shout out to Jaden Campbell. That game he played on the weekend was outstanding. Young kid, Preston Campbell. So I mean, Preston was one of my favourites.
How much is he like his dad? He's so much like his dad.
Seriously.
The way he plays,
Yeah.
just a bit more fitter.
Yeah, but I think with the Titans, I mean, I don't think they'll beat the Roosters, but as Lockie said, they can because they can score points. They could do it. That's a team that can do it. I don't think they will because I don't think they have as much experience there. The Roosters have got a lot of professionals. You know, Warrior, Hargreaves, Bradley come in. Those guys have won comps. They know what to do, but it's Roosters for me. But if the Titans win it, it won't be the biggest shock to me.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you guys. Thank you for joining on this very, very first but not the last episode of Secure the Bag OT NRL edition. Make sure if you're watching, subscribe, like, share it to your friends. Make sure to check us out and follow us on all our social medias. And tune in 3 weeks, when we discuss the grand final and our team of the year. Thanks, guys.